The phone buzzed on the nightstand, its screen flashing Evan in the dark. I froze, heart pounding like a drum in my chest. My twin brother's name glowing there felt like a summons to a life I'd never dared to live. I'm Ethan Carter, the quieter half of a pair of identical twins, always content to let Evan shine brighter. We're both 26, both white, with the same chestnut hair and hazel eyes. But where Evan's charisma commands boardrooms, I'm happiest sketching in my Brooklyn apartment. That night, though, Evan's voice on the phone was desperate, a rare crack in his polished facade. "Ethan, I need you," he said, words slurring slightly. "I'm in Chicago, stuck with a client emergency. You have to cover for me at the firm tomorrow." "Cover for you?" I laughed, thinking it was a joke. Evan ran a high-powered marketing firm in Manhattan, schmoozing with millionaires and crafting campaigns that made brands untouchable. Me, I was a freelance illustrator who hadn't worn a suit since prom. But Evan wasn't laughing. "You're my twin," he pressed. "No one will know. Just one day. Ethan, please." The idea was insane, but the tremor in his voice hooked me. Evan never asked for help not like this. By sunrise, I was in his tailored navy suit, staring at my reflection in his penthouse mirror, trying to mimic his confident stride. The firm, Carter Creative, was a sleek glass fortress on Fifth Avenue, buzzing with employees who greeted me as Evan without a second glance. My pulse raced as I stepped into his corner office, the city skyline sprawling beyond the windows. Papers littered his desk, and a photo of us as kids grinned from a frame. Two identical boys, one fearless, one cautious. The morning was a blur of meetings I barely understood, nodding along to jargon about brand synergy and market penetration. I kept my answers vague, channeling Evan's charm as best I could. Then came the 2 p.m. appointment. Liam Harper, a tech mogul whose startup, Horizon Innovations, was Carter Creative's biggest client. The door swung open, and in walked a man who made the room feel smaller. Liam was tall, broad-shouldered, with piercing blue eyes and a jawline that could cut glass. His white skin glowed under the office lights, and his tailored charcoal suit screamed power. He extended a hand, his grip firm. "Evan, good to see you," he said, voice smooth as whiskey. I swallowed, my throat dry. "Likewise," I managed, praying he didn't notice the slight shake in my hand. Liam sat across from me, diving into plans for Horizon's new campaign. His intensity was magnetic, every word deliberate, every glance like he was peeling back layers. I stumbled through responses, leaning on Evan's notes, but Liam's eyes lingered on me, curious, like he sensed something off. "You seem different today," he said, leaning back with a half-smile. My stomach dropped. Did he know? The meeting stretched on, and I found myself watching him too closely, the way his fingers tapped the table, the way his lips curved when he talked about his vision. He was passionate, almost boyish, beneath the CEO polish. By the time he left, I was sweating, not just from nerves, but from the heat of his presence. I collapsed into Evan's chair, heart hammering. Pretending to be my brother was one thing. Feeling something for his client, that was dangerous. That night, I called Evan, expecting relief that I'd survived. "You're a lifesaver," he said, but his tone was distracted, like he was already on to the next crisis. "Can you do one more day?" I wanted to say no, to retreat to my safe, quiet life. But Liam's face flashed in my mind, those eyes, that smile. "Fine," I said, voice barely steady. "One more day?" The next morning, I was back in Evan's suit, back in his office. But this time, Liam arrived unannounced. "Thought I'd drop by," he said, leaning against the doorframe, his gaze locking onto mine. "Got time for coffee?" My heart stuttered. This wasn't in Evan's notes. I should have said no, kept the charade clean. But something in his voice, low and inviting, pulled me in. Sure, I said, and followed him out, the line between Ethan and Evan blurring with every step. We ended up at a small cafe nearby, the kind with mismatched chairs and the smell of roasted beans. Liam talked about his startup, his dreams, his life beyond the boardroom. He was from a small town in Ohio, he said, and built Horizon from nothing. His vulnerability caught me off guard, and I found myself opening up not as Evan, but as me. I told him about sketching, about finding stories in the lines of a pencil. His eyes softened, and for a moment, I forgot I was pretending. You're not what I expected, he said, stirring his coffee. Evan's usually all business. My chest tightened. I was slipping, letting Ethan bleed through. But Liam didn't press. Instead, he leaned closer, his knee brushing mine under the table. The touch was electric, and I didn't pull away. For the first time, I wondered what it would be like to be seen as me, not my twin, to be wanted for who I was. By the end of the day, I was in too deep. Liam asked me to dinner, and I said yes, knowing every second I spent with him was a risk. I wasn't Evan. I wasn't supposed to feel this way. But as we walked through the city, the lights of Manhattan flickering around us, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than a ruse. It was real, and it was terrifying. Dinner was at a rooftop restaurant, the kind with candlelit tables and a view of the Hudson River glittering below. Liam chose it, saying he wanted somewhere less stuffy than the firm's usual haunts. I sat across from him, still in Evan's suit, feeling like a fraud but unable to walk away. His blue eyes caught the candlelight, and every time he smiled, my resolve to keep this professional crumbled a little more. You're quieter tonight, Liam said, cutting into his steak. Everything okay? I nodded, forcing a grin I hoped looked like Evan's. Just a long day. The truth was, I was drowning in the weight of the lie. Every word I spoke, as Evan felt like a betrayal not just of my brother, but of the man sitting across from me, who was starting to see someone who didn't exist. The conversation shifted to personal ground. Liam talked about his past, how he'd left Ohio to escape a family that didn't understand him. They wanted me to be someone I'm not, he said, his voice low. I know what that's like. My heart ached. I wanted to tell him I understood, that I'd spent my life in Evan's shadow, always the second choice. But I couldn't, not without breaking the facade. As the night wore on, the air between us grew charged. He reached across the table, his fingers grazing mine as he passed the wine. The touch lingered, deliberate, and my breath caught. You're different, Evan, he said again. But this time, his tone held something else, curiosity, maybe desire. I should have pulled back, ended the night, but I didn't. I leaned into it, letting the moment stretch. We walked through Central Park after dinner, the city's hum fading into the rustle of leaves. Liam stopped by a stone bridge, the same one I'd later imagined in that golden hour photo. He turned to me, his face half lit by a street lamp. I don't do this often, he said, stepping closer. But there's something about you. Before I could respond, he kissed me. It was soft at first, then urgent, like he'd been holding back. My mind screamed that this was wrong, that I was stealing something meant for Evan. But my heart didn't care. For the first time, I felt alive. The next day, I was back at the firm, my head spinning. Evan called, sounding more himself. I'm back tomorrow, he said. You're done after today? Relief should have flooded me. But instead, panic gripped my chest. One more day meant one more chance to see Liam, and one more chance to ruin everything. I spent the morning avoiding him, burying myself in Evan's emails. But at noon, Liam appeared in the office doorway, holding 2 coffees. Thought you might need this, he said, handing me one. His fingers brushed mine, and I nearly dropped the cup. We worked on Horizon's campaign together that afternoon, our chairs closer than necessary. Every glance, every accidental touch, felt like a spark. I was falling, hard, and I knew it. But the lie was a ticking bomb. Liam deserved the truth. But telling him meant risking Evan's career and whatever this was between us. By the time he left, promising to call Evan tomorrow, I was a mess of guilt and longing. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in Evan's penthouse, staring at the city lights, replaying Liam's kiss. I wanted to be Ethan again, to tell Liam who I really was. But what if he hated me for it? What if he only wanted Evan, the confident, successful twin? The thought gutted me. I was falling for a man who didn't even know my name. The next morning, Evan returned. He strode into the penthouse, all charm and gratitude, oblivious to the storm inside me. "You did great," he said, clapping my shoulder. "Liam called me on my way back. He's thrilled with the campaign." My stomach twisted. Liam thought he'd been working with Evan, kissing Evan. I forced a smile and handed over his suit, retreating to my own life. But as I left, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hey, Evan. Dinner tonight. Liam." My heart stopped. He'd gotten my number, not Evan's. For a moment, I let myself imagine saying yes, showing up as Ethan, laying it all bare. But the risk was too great. I deleted the text and walked away, each step heavier than the last. I thought I could leave it behind, but Liam's face haunted me, and the lie I'd lived felt like a wound that wouldn't close. Days passed, but the ache didn't fade. Back in my Brooklyn apartment, surrounded by sketchpads and half-finished drawings, I tried to bury myself in work. But every line I drew turned into Liam's face, those sharp blue eyes, that half-smile that made my chest tighten. I'd walked away from him, deleted his text, but I couldn't erase the feeling of his lips on mine or the way his voice softened when he spoke to me. I was Ethan, not Evan, and yet I'd let myself fall for a man who thought I was someone else. Evan, oblivious, called me that weekend. "Liam's obsessed with you." He laughed, his voice crackling through the phone. "Keeps asking about Evan from last week. What did you do to him?" My throat closed. I mumbled something about work and hung up, my hands shaking. Liam was asking about me, but not me. The irony was cruel-eyed finally felt seen, but only through my brother's mask. I avoided Manhattan, afraid I'd run into Liam, but fate had other plans. A week later, I was at an art gallery in Soho, dropping off sketches for a small exhibit. The space was crowded, filled with the hum of critics and collectors. I was adjusting a frame when I heard his voice. "Evan." My heart lurched. I turned, and there was Liam, standing out in a sea of suits. His eyes locked on me. He looked confused, then pleased, crossing the room in long strides. "You're not in a suit," he said, glancing at my jeans and flannel shirt. "Didn't expect to see you here." I opened my mouth, but no words came. This was my world, not Evan's, and I wasn't prepared to play the part. "I'm not working today," I said, the lie tasting bitter. Liam's smile widened. "Good. You look more like yourself." The words hit harder than they should have. Did he see me? Even a little. We wandered the gallery together, talking about art instead of business. I let myself be Ethan, sharing my passion for sketching, pointing out the emotion in a brushstroke or the story in a canvas. Liam listened, really listened, his gaze intense but warm. "You're full of surprises," he said, stopping in front of one of my PC's, a sketch of two figures under a bridge, their hands almost touching. My breath caught. I hadn't meant for him to see that. He invited me for drinks afterward, and I couldn't say no. We ended up at a quiet bar, tucked in a corner booth. The conversation flowed too easily, and I let my guard down, laughing at his stories, sharing bits of my own. But every time he called me Evan, it stung. I wanted to tell him the truth, to rip off the mask and see if he'd still look at me the same. But fear held me back. What if he felt betrayed? What if he walked away? As we left the bar, the night air cool against my skin, Liam stopped me on the sidewalk. I like this version of you, he said, his voice low. The real one. My heart pounded. He was so close, his hand brushing my arm, and I wanted nothing more than to kiss him again, to be Ethan in that moment. But the lie was a wall between us. I should go, I said, stepping back, my voice barely steady. His face fell, but he nodded. See you soon, Evan. I didn't sleep that night. The truth was clawing at me, demanding to be let out. The next day, I went to Evan's penthouse, pacing as I told him everything, not the feelings. Not yet, but the ruse, the meetings, the coffee, the dinner. He stared at me, stunned, then laughed. You pulled it off. Ethan, you're a genius. But his amusement faded when he saw my face. What's wrong? I can't keep doing this, I said, my voice breaking. Liam thinks I'm you, and it's killing me. Evan's eyes widened. He didn't know about the kiss, about the nights I'd spent replaying every moment with Liam. Then tell him, he said, like it was that simple. You're my brother. You're just as good as my better. Maybe. His faith in me was a lifeline, but it didn't erase the fear. I spent the next day sketching, trying to decide. Tell Liam and risk everything, or walk away and live with the what-ifs. By evening, I was a wreck, but my phone buzzed with another text from Liam. Missed you at the office today. Dinner tomorrow. My hands trembled as I typed a reply. Can we meet somewhere else? I need to tell you something. I hit send before I could change my mind. The truth was coming, whether I was ready or not. The meeting spot was the stone bridge in Central Park, the same one where Liam had kissed me. I chose it deliberately, hoping the memory would give me courage. The air was crisp, the sunset painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I stood there, no longer in Evan's suit, but in my own clothed jeans. A sweater. Me. My heart raced as I waited, rehearsing the words I'd never said aloud. I'm not Evan. I'm Ethan. Liam arrived, his presence as commanding as ever. He wore a dark jacket, his white skin catching the fading light. Hey, he said, his smile soft but curious. You okay? You look nervous. I nodded, my mouth dry. There was no turning back now. I gestured for him to walk with me, the gravel crunching under our feet. The park was quiet, the world narrowing to just us. I need to tell you something, I started, my voice shaking. Liam stopped, his eyes searching mine. Whatever it is, you can say it. His kindness made it harder. I took a breath, the words spilling out before I could lose my nerve. I'm not Evan. I'm his twin brother, Ethan. I was covering for him at the firm when we met. Everything you know about Mites me. Not him. I'm sorry. The silence that followed was deafening. Liam's face was unreadable, his blue eyes flickering with shock. Then something else hurt. Maybe anger. My stomach twisted. You're not Evan, he repeated, his voice low. I shook my head, bracing for him to walk away. Instead, he stepped closer, his gaze intense. Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. But I was scared. Scared you'd hate me. Scared you'd only want him. I told him everything Evan's call. The ruse. The way I'd fallen for him despite the lie. My hands trembled as I spoke, laying myself bare. When I finished, Liam was quiet, his jaw tight. I waited, every second an eternity. Finally, he spoke. You let me believe you were someone else, he said, and the hurt in his voice cut deep. But the guy I talked to at the gallery, the one who loves art, who listened, that was you, right? I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. That was me. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. I don't know what to do with this. Ethan, I need time. He walked away, and I let him go, the weight of the truth both freeing and crushing. For days, I heard nothing. I threw myself into sketching, filling pages with Liam's face. The bridge, The moment I'd lost him, Evan tried to cheer me up, but even his optimism couldn't reach me. I'd fallen for someone I couldn't have, and the lie had cost me everything. Then, a week later, my phone buzzed. A text from Liam. "Can we talk? Meet me at the gallery." My heart leapt, but I tempered it with caution. I arrived at the Soho Gallery, the familiar hum of voices surrounding me. Liam was there, standing in front of my sketch of the bridge. He turned, his expression softer than I'd expected. "I've been thinking," he said. "About you. About us." He stepped closer, his voice steady. I was mad. "Ethan, you lied, and that hurt. But the guy I fell for, the one who talked about art, who made me laugh, that's you. Not Evan." My breath caught. "You fell for me?" I asked, barely daring to hope. He nodded, a small smile breaking through. "Yeah, and I want to know you. The real you." We talked for hours, sitting on a bench outside the gallery. He asked about my life, my art, my fears. I told him about growing up in Evan's shadow, about feeling like the lesser twin. He listened, his hand resting on mine, and for the first time, I felt seen, not as Evan's double, but as Ethan. When he kissed me, it was slow, deliberate, and real. No masks, no lies. But the happiness was fragile. Liam was still Evan's client, and the firm's success depended on his account. If Evan found out, if the truth spread, it could ruin everything. I wanted to believe we could navigate it, but the world wasn't as forgiving as a moment on a bridge. Still, as I looked at Liam, I knew I'd fight for this for us. The weeks that followed were a delicate dance. Liam and I met in secret coffee shops, quiet parks, anywhere away from the firm. Every moment with him felt like a stolen treasure, his laughter and touch grounding me in a way I'd never known. But the shadow of the lie lingered. Evan didn't know about us, and the longer we kept it hidden, the heavier it weighed. One evening, we were at my apartment. Liam sprawled on my couch, flipping through my sketchbook. "You're incredible," he said, tracing a drawing of him I'd done from memory. His eyes met mine, warm and unguarded. "I want this to work, Ethan. But we can't keep sneaking around." I knew he was right. The truth had to come out, not just to Liam, but to Evan, to the world. I told Evan the next day, sitting in his penthouse. His face went from shock to anger to something softer, understanding. "Maybe you're in love with him?" he asked, and I nodded, bracing for judgment. Instead, he sighed. "You're an idiot, but you're my brother. We'll figure this out." His support was a relief. But the bigger problem was the firm. Liam's account was too valuable to risk, and a scandal could tank Carter Creative. Liam and I met at the bridge again. Our place now. I told him Evan knew, that we needed a plan. He took my hand, his grip steady. "I'll talk to my board," he said. "I'll make it clear you're not Evan, that our relationship is separate from the firm." It was a risk, but he was willing to take it for me. For us. The next week was tense. Liam met with his team, laying out the truth about me, about us. I waited, heart in my throat, expecting backlash. Instead, he called me that night, his voice light. "They're fine with it," he said. "They like the campaign, and they trust me. We're okay." I exhaled, relief flooding me. But the real test was the firm. Evan called a meeting with his team, introducing me as his twin, explaining the switch. There were raised eyebrows, some awkward laughs, but no one walked away. Liam was there, standing by my side, his presence a quiet strength. When the meeting ended, Evan pulled me aside. "You're not the lesser twin," he said, his voice firm. "You never were." That night, Liam and I walked through the city, hand in hand, no longer hiding. The lights of Manhattan felt brighter, the air lighter. We stopped at the bridge, the place where it all began. "I love you," he said, and the words hit me like a wave. I'd spent my life feeling like a shadow, But with him, I was whole. I love you too, I said, and meant it. The road ahead wasn't perfect. There were whispers at the firm, curious glances from strangers. But we faced them together. I started showing my art more, even landing a small exhibit with Liam's encouragement. He built Horizon into something bigger, and Evan's firm thrived. We were building something to a life, messy and real. Looking back, the lie that brought us together could have torn us apart. But it didn't. It taught me to step out of the shadows, to claim my own story. Liam saw me, not as Evan's twin, but as Ethan flawed, passionate, enough. And in that truth, we found something worth fighting for. As we stood on the bridge, the city alive around us, I realized the greatest risk wasn't the lie. It was living without love, without being seen. I'd pretended to be my brother, but the feelings, the real, raw, beautiful feelings were all mine. And they were enough.